Hey, everybody. I wanted to take a second to talk about the grades that we do here at Rhineye because we changed our entire grading system this year, and I want to make sure that I'm clear about how you're going to be graded and, how is everything weighted because it's a different system than you're probably used to. One of the things that I love about Rhineye is that we are a charter, and so we get to try out new sorts of methods of education. Traditionally, we grade you to find out what you know, right? That's the idea. And so you get a test or a quiz or something, and you answer questions, and you do some problems, and then we say, did you get it right or wrong? And that determines how much you've learned. But that can be a loaded system. There's a lot of bias in that system because, for instance, if we're talking about averages and statistics, and you are trying to figure out averages of different numbers and stuff, if I deliver that through a problem about a basketball game, you know, that if you don't know anything about basketball, that's going to make it hard for you to answer those questions. I don't follow any sports, and that's always a place where math goes is sports. And how many points is this worth in football? And if you don't know about that sport, well, then you're at a disadvantage, even though you may know the math. So the system that we're using with standards-based grading is a lot more fair because it's instead of grading you on like a question, like, what is the freezing temperature of water, we're grading you on an ability to do something. And so it doesn't really matter under what context you do it. What matters is, can you do it? So I want to take a quick second to run through what this looks like, tell you how you're graded so that you can see what work you need to make up, what work you may not need to make up, and plan going forward how you're going to tackle your grades. And this is doubly important this year because with the restrictions from COVID and with cases climbing as much as they are in Rhode Island, there's a lot of people who are really struggling to get work done. And so being able to understand what it is we're looking for and how we're going to grade you is critical to your ability to succeed this year. So for starters, I want to show you the standards you're going to get graded on. In science, I've got 8 standards relating to science and engineering practices, and I've got a series of content knowledge standards. And those are things like, forces in motion or matter in the universe, the information that you learn in science class. The science and engineering practices are things you're going to do in every one of those units, regardless of what the content knowledge is. So things like asking questions or using data or manipulating models or using math to explain phenomena. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you right now a few things that you may find helpful. So this is the view from Skyward. When you log into Skyward, this is what it's going to look like for your grade book. And I'm showing you the science portion of this. There's definitely other portions that are above this, your English and math and all those other classes. If you look up here at the top, you'll see that I have S1 is semester 1. SE1, I believe, is the semester exam 1. And SM1 is your final semester 1 grade. So this is the work you do, this is the exam, and this is the final for the semester. Because this is a year-long course, you also have semester 2, semester final of the year 2, and then your final grade in the class. I believe that's what those stand for. I could be mistaken. But when we look here in semester 1, you'll see that under science and engineering practices, there are a number of SEPs. Science and engineering practice 1 is to formulate, refine, and evaluate information and asking questions. And we had one assignment under there that tackled that, this evaluating websites assignment. You also see I have number 2, use, synthesize, and develop models. And we did a lot of that, building parachutes and using those motion graphs to determine where objects are going, and the moving man who ran across the screen. Those are all simulations. Newton's laws, the first lab we did with the car that ran down the ramp, that was also a model. Step SEP3 is to plan and carry out investigations. We're going to do that in the next unit, but we haven't gotten to that yet. So there aren't any assignments under there. Analyzing data using more detailed, I forget what this actually asks for. SEP5 is demonstrating mathematical skills, and then constructing explanations and engaging in argument and obtain and communicate information. We're going to do a lot more of these ones in the next semester and in the coming months. And then I also have content knowledge, and these all say demonstrates competency of the relevant. If you hover over them in your Skyward, it's going to tell you what that's about. The one that's highlighted down here at the very bottom is the moving man, and that is the forces in motion unit that we've been working in. So again, you have 8 SEPs, science and engineering practices, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And then you have content knowledge, and there's one of those for every unit we do, because they're all going to have a different content knowledge that you're trying to address. So a couple of things. Your grade in my class is the average of all of your SEP1, SEP2, SEP3, SEP4, SEP5. So your grade is going to be the combination of the average of all of those put together. Some of them we've done and some we haven't. So for instance, in this first one, there's only one assignment under here. If you bombed that assignment, you're not going to do very well on that first standard. But don't worry, you'll have the opportunity to do more of those assignments in the coming weeks. Number 2, we had 5 assignments that hit that one. And sometimes an assignment will hit more than one standard. So for instance, you see the moving man here is demonstrating mathematical ability. It's also using and synthesizing and developing models. So a lot of these apply to more than one standard. Here's Newton's Law Lab, the one we just finished, and it's in 3 different places. So for instance, the moving man, there was one question at the end that really spoke to your ability to use math, whereas the rest of it was about models. So sometimes they'll be in more than one category. So when you're planning out what are my grades and what do I have to do to do better, you want to look at the standards and see what assignments are missing from within each one of those standards. The other thing that's different about standards-based grading is that we weigh assignments differently than you're used to. You probably are used to like homework is 10% of your course, and tests are worth 30%, and quizzes are worth 20%, and it all adds up to 100%. And that means that some things are weighted more heavily. A test is obviously more important than the homework grade. We're not doing it the same way anymore. So what we're doing is a weighted average that changes throughout the quarter or throughout the semester. So if you look at this example, here are 4 students who had grade 1 and grade 2 and grade 3 and grade 4, and then they got an average of those grades based on the fact that the last assignment we did counts the most. So what that means is that student 1 here didn't turn in assignment 1 or assignment 2. They got zeros on those. Their third thing they turned in, they got a 4 out of 4, and they did really well on. And the same thing with their 4th assignment. Their average is an A-. They get a 3.5 out of 4 for their grade. That's because the last assignment that you turn in is worth 2/3 of that grade, and everything before it is worth 1/3 of your grade. So the average of 0, 0, and 4 is 1/3 of that grade. The other 2/3 of that grade come from this 4. If you flip that around, here's a student that's failing, but had the same letter grades, the same number grades. They did really well on their first two assignments and missed the second two. Well, that means that the average of 4, 4, and 0, a really good score, is only 1/3 of their grade. The fourth assignment, this 0, counts as 2/3 of the grade. So student number 3 here had a 0, a 4, a 4, and a 3. That average is going to be a 3.18, because even though they did really well on these first 3 assignments, they didn't do very well on the fourth one, which means that that assignment is weighing for 2/3 of the grade, and the average of these others, even though it's higher than 3, is only 1/3 of the grade. So the key here is that you want to do better over time. You want to do, if we go back to those standards, you want to use, synthesize, and develop models by building a parachute. And for a little while, that would be whatever grade you scored on, that would be your grade in the class. But as soon as the next assignment came out, this Unit 1 assessment, well, this student had an F on. They didn't finish it very well. And that means that this building a parachute, even if they did it really well, they had a 4 on it or whatever. That's going to only account for 1/3 of the grade. This F is going to take over because they actually did worse over time. You want to make sure you do better over time, which means looking at this SEP2, if Newton's Laws Lab number 1 is a 4, this F on Unit 1 assessment is probably forgivable because it's going to make up, of these 4 assignments, this is going to make up 1/4 of 1/3 of the grade. Because these 4 assignments are going to be averaged together and then make up 1/3 of the grade. And this Newton's Laws Lab is going to be 2/3 of the grade. The next assignment we do that uses models is going to be Newton's Laws Lab 2. And that assignment is then going to become the one that's worth 2/3 of the grade. And these other assignments are going to become, the average of all of them is going to become 1/3 of the grade. What this means is you may not have to do every assignment to get a good grade in class. The last assignment we do has to be fantastic. The best way to make sure that that happens is to turn in every assignment the best you can so that you're getting practice with using math, asking questions, drawing conclusions. If you try to just ignore everything and whip out a great piece of work at the end of the semester, it's not going to happen because you didn't get all the practice working up to it. And 1/3 of your grade is the average of all that work. If 1/3 of your grade is 0, you're not going to walk out with A's. So if you're aiming for a perfect 4.0 and you want to have a perfect grade, then you need to get perfect grades on all your assignments. But you might not need to do that to pass, right? To pass, you need to make sure that you do the last assignment in every one of your standards to a high level. And again, that's easiest by turning in all your work. But if you're missing everything and you haven't turned in any work, maybe going back and working on velocity math problems isn't really going to be worth your time, because Newton's Laws Lab 1 is the math you should be focused on, and balanced and unbalanced forces was the one you should be working on. But now these 4 are all going to add up to 1/3 of your grade, and this lab is going to be 2/3 of your grade. Once another math problem rolls in, that assignment is going to be worth 2/3 of your grade, and the average of everything else becomes 1/3 of your grade. Again, the goal is growth. You want to get better over time. So if you miss the last assignment in the semester, there's no way you're going to pass. 2/3 of your grade is going to be a 0. So you want to make sure that you're always completing work to the best of your ability. But if you miss something, it might not be the best use of your time to go back and repeat it. So I wanted to make sure you knew how to look through this and see what you have here. And this one, I know the grades aren't all in the book here, but if you look at all these assessments, all these standards, and you look at the assignments that address them, this evaluating websites is pretty crucial right now. And if you're failing the class, maybe it's because you have an F in this because you didn't do the evaluating websites. A lot of people didn't turn that work in back in the beginning, and so they're sitting on an F. That's making up one large portion of their average. Hopefully this kind of clears up how to read the grades, what we're grading, and how your grades are going to be calculated. Because it's a rolling weight, and it means that the last thing we do counts the heaviest. You want to make sure you're always staying current with it. And you want to know what standards you need work on. If you come here and you're passing SCP-2 really well, but you're struggling with the math part and it looks like you failed all of these, maybe you want to focus more on actually doing math in science than you are using models in science, because these assignments, I'm assuming you're going to continue to grow and do well on, where math might be the place where you need help. So hopefully that helps, and I'm not just rambling too much. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments, and I will try to answer them as best I can. And remember, if you're questioning it, someone else probably is too. So stand up, raise your voice, and ask the question, because someone else will probably benefit from it too. All right? Have a good day off tomorrow, and it's 1 o'clock in the morning. Have a good day off today, and I'll see you all on Thursday. All right? Bye.